the value of a woman in a very narrow capacity is her as a life giver, a mother. And when that capacity is no longer there, there could be a diminishment to her overall value of worth. And that's a very limited approach to it.
Hey there, I'm Bria, and welcome to the Period Whisperer podcast. If you're over 35 and ready for real answers about your hormones, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and stay with us. Hey there, sisters. Welcome back to what I think is going to be a very exciting episode of the Period Whisperer podcast. But I have to ask, what if one of the most confusing, frustrating, and honestly isolating seasons of a woman's life, perimenopause and menopause, could be turned into something hilarious, healing, and wildly unifying? Today on the show, I am joined by Tony Award winner director Seth Greenleaf, the man behind Menopause the Musical. I know many of you guys have already seen it, and many of you guys, if you haven't, should go see it. But it's a show that has helped over 17 million women laugh, connect, and finally feel seen during a time that we know is very confusing. We're talking about how menopause went from the silent passage to center stage, why laughter might actually be medicine in midlife, and what happens when women realize they are absolutely not alone in what they're experiencing. So if you've ever thought, what the hell is happening to my body, in my body, this episode, I think, is going to feel good for your soul. So welcome to the show, Seth. I'm so happy you're here.
Needs to be here.
Yeah, very, very exciting. We already had a good laugh before we started. So it's such a pleasure having you. I'm very excited to kind of dive in. And maybe you can just start by sharing a bit about your journey in theater and what ultimately led you to become involved in Menopause the Musical, especially as a man.
Well, you'll find this shocking, but it was not a course that I had plotted for myself. I didn't. I wouldn't say I knew anything about menopause before being introduced to the topic through an early incarnation of the show in Los Angeles that I was asked to go and scout, and I went and had studied classical theater and directing and filmmaking and all kinds of lofty, artistic things, and then, here was this kind of unsophisticated show, which really lent to its charm, um, and about a topic that, I mean, I could not have been more ignorant on. But what was overwhelmingly obvious was the audience response, and this was really, really in the early days, and it was what we try to do in theater is touch on things and give voice to things that might not otherwise get discussed freely or openly. Theater has a really unique opportunity because there's not a lot of times where people will sit quietly for 90 minutes or 2 hours and experience material and conversation and ideas. And it's a really unique position that theater has, and it doesn't always take advantage of it, but what was really clear that night was that this was speaking to something very, very powerful. And I was pretty blown away by the experience. And then my company ended up producing the show. And then just very oddly through happenstance, I ended up directing one of the productions. The original creative team wasn't available. The director that we were working with wasn't available. I had overheard a lot of the creative arguments for years between Jeannie, the original creator, my production company, and my producing partners who tended to play more for the comedy. Jeannie, who really wanted the sincerity of the people going through things. And anyway, I directed a version of the show. And Jeannie, the creator, had snuck into the theater in South Orange, New Jersey, and nobody knew she was even coming from Arizona at the time.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, and then, boy, the anxiety level, did it spike on the meter. So she saw the show, and I never saw this coming in a million years. She walked up to me afterwards, and she said, "You're the only person who's allowed to direct the show from here on."
Oh my gosh.
And I just went and she said, "Good job," and left. And I had no idea what happened or what hit me, but then that was it, and now I was the menopause guy. And I had to, I felt I needed to hold that mantle responsibly. Um, and I think what Jeannie responded to was really not me pretending that this was my issue or that I personally understood it, but that I heard what she was saying, and I heard what women were responding to, and held it sacrosanct in the presentation of the show. And so I have felt like a shepherd, and just doing my best to be of service to it and what the audiences are experiencing.
Yeah, I'm sure. When you first watched it yourself, like, did you laugh? Was it or were you like, "This is I've never even heard of this stuff before," or what was that experience?
Obviously, I didn't identify with the jokes at the time, but I was responding to the audience responding. And, when a room full of people laugh, it's very infectious. But in particular with this, the laughter was coming from something that had been repressed. The best laugh you could ever have is one that gives permission or sort of unburdens an old topic like shame, especially shame. If you can give people an exit point into shame through laughter, it's not just laughter. I mean, it's like a spring that has been held down and just explodes. And that's what was happening in the theater. And you can't be in the vicinity and not feel it.
Yeah. It's beautiful the way you say that because I can feel emotional just thinking about what those women had gone through. I mean, like 7 years ago, nobody even knew the word perimenopause and barely menopause. So it's beautiful to see how much it's, come into a more normalized topic, and obviously the show has a big part of that. I think it was once referred to as the silent passage or so. What do you think allowed the show to bring that conversation, into such a mainstream and powerful way? Was it the comedy?
I think for sure the comedy helped tremendously. And I think also just the humanness of it. So, like when I said earlier, it wasn't a particularly sophisticated show. It wasn't, here's the intellectualism of, menopause and what does it mean in context to a patriarchal, all of this sort of it really did a very good job of just showing four human beings going through something and finding comfort in each other and finding that sense of sisterhood. And one of the reasons it was called a silent passage, as is that it just wasn't discussed, even from mother to daughter. There was this shame that was embedded into the conversation. And so we all need one another to feel comfort. I mean, very difficult as a human being, as a social species, to solve our problems by ourselves. And where you could really see the magic happen was, especially in the early years, the first menopause joke that would hit, the audience would respond, but then they would respond to the response, and you could see that for a lot of women, it was the first time that they realized that other people were going through the exact same experience they were going through. And that was like this lightning bolt that would go through the audience, and then, like, from there, they would become sisters,
Yeah.
collective experience, and that was really wild to watch.
Was in the early days, did you find that the audience was predominantly female?
It's always been, almost probably somewhere between 90 and 95% female. Some exceptions, some like international licensing that you'll see couples come in, we did in Mexico City, there were even families that came in, which was wild.
Mm.
But no, on a normal day, it's really a girls' night out, and then some brave men, who will come as partners and support, and they have a blast too. But yeah, mostly women.
I would assume that they could have a blast. They probably, if they have a partner who's going through it, or they probably can recognize some of that in it as well, and then hopefully make light of some of the challenging times that reflect on to them.
Yeah. And the show has some fun with the men also,
Oh,
it's
does it? Okay, good. I love that. That's awesome. Did you find, like, because it's interesting to think about this shame, like where the shame comes from. I feel like purely a philosophical question. Like, do you think it's tied so much to this feeling of like, oh, I'm aging now, like I'm aging into this time and I'm no longer fertile as a woman? Or what do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly where it comes from. The value of a woman in a very narrow capacity is her as a life giver, a mother, and when that capacity is no longer there, there could be a diminishment to her overall value or worth, and that's a very limited approach to it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that there was a time and a place, and there are times and places in this world today that put that specific value on a woman. Now, of course, I mean, look, that is a magical power, no doubt about it, but it's 1% of what a woman is and, in their entirety. So to overweigh that much value on that one particular capacity is obviously very unfair. And I do think that women sort of had this message that your worth had diminished greatly as a result of that. And part of what the show will say is that this is just the first step of the rest of your life. And one of the things that's really fun is that it's playing to an audience that is at a very precious moment in their life, which is now that the responsibility of childbearing and child rearing has maybe passed. um, what do you wanna come back to? Your life got interrupted on some level because it's very hard to be a full-time mother and whatever else you're doing, although we see people who do that too. But what's the rest of your life about? What are you getting back into? What are your unfulfilled dreams? And so it's this midlife moment where there should be a lot of excitement. There should be a lot of freedom to move forward. So to focus on what's ended is a terrible dead end to leave somebody with. To focus on what's available is very inspiring, and so the show does a nice job of redirecting that focus.
I love that. So not only is it normalizing and connecting the sisterhood, but it's also reminding people like you have doors that are opening because you're no longer being hormonally hijacked.
And you have a wisdom that you maybe didn't have at the time when you were starting some other things in your life, and there are cultures out there that really hold women of age in great esteem because they're the wisdom keepers. You actually see that in certain species of whales, where the female whales, after they are done with child rearing, are like worshipped by the group and very protected because they're sort of the wisdom carriers.
I mean, it's funny. I have seen a shift just in humanity in general. But when I was raised, there was a very like respect your elders, kind of mentality. And I don't know that that's existing the way it once did. But so it's great to hear that the show is just, yeah, reminding us of that. And I love that whale example. Still, like, did you find in the early days, did you encounter any hesitation or any resistance around this topic?
So that was also an education for me. Um, we were in Boston, and the cast was singing the national anthem at Fenway Park, and they wouldn't put the title of the show on the screen. And the answer was, well, baseball's it's a family event, as if menopause was this, taboo, offensive topic, and, and this was 20 years ago, but that was what it was like, and we would get that resistance frequently, and we would get the resistance from theaters who felt that it would be offensive to their audiences, and it was pretty fascinating to watch the conversation change over time, and it, like, really hit critical mass at where I think it is today. And you see it in commercials, you see it in stand-up, you see it late night. It's such an embraced topic, and 20 years ago, boy, it was anything but.
Gosh, that's crazy to think about that, but it does really speak to that added layer of shame, I think, even just around menstruating, because obviously that's the thing, right? It's like, oh, we don't want to talk about periods and then not having periods, which is essentially what's happening in menopause. So it's no wonder it was such a silent journey for women.
Very different than indigenous cultures, sometimes as more we advance, sometimes seem to disconnect from what we are, but I don't know, I think it's just part of the process.
I feel like this musical, this production was a big part of pushing this conversation forward. Did you notice anything else at the time that really helped, or was it just this kind of slow burn?
It did feel like it hit a critical mass in a way, because I remember where it was resistance, 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 and then all of a sudden, I think partly just due to the success of the show, because we live in a commercial environment and people gravitate towards success. And the funny thing about the show is it overlapped with the most powerful consumer group,
Mm.
which is, women with disposable income, usually like post 40 years old. That's a really strong group. And if you can appeal to them, you have a really viable product. And I think that's what people first started noticing about the show, how often it was selling out, this great reaction from people. And then that became attractive. And in our capitalistic society, you can really move the conversation to success.
Yeah.
And so it was really a very nice pairing where it was doing what it was doing from the standpoint of shame, introduction to the topic, and then it being commercially viable to a really important group drew more attention. And I think then when that happens, it pushes the conversation into the mainstream.
Yeah, it's almost like supply and demand. All of a sudden, just
That's clearly a need. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I know we've talked about, like, obviously the humor and the power of that humor. Can you give us a sneak peek into, like, what maybe one or two of the areas of comedy that you really noticed, connected people or drove the laughs?
Sure. One of the really fun and disarming qualities of the show is that the nostalgia of the music, 'cause it's great songs from the '60s, '70s, and '80s with parody lyrics around menopause and aging. So, like, "Staying Alive," the Bee Gees is now "Staying Awake," difficulty getting to sleep, "My Girl" is "My Thighs," uh, "Puff the Magic Dragon," "Puff My God, I'm Dragging." So, there's again, just sort of plays into the universal experience in a very fun spin. But then there's some situational stuff that's just really honest and disarming all at the same time. You have women navigating sexuality at that age, and that's usually creates a very big response, learning to shift love and pleasure onto oneself and having it be internally self-focused and then going out rather than everything being about men and approval. Um, the characters as archetypes people really connect to. You see some of yourself in at least one character, if not a couple of them. And always throughout the show, you'll see elbows and like, that's you, or that's Carol. So there's a real identifiable quality. And that was one of the geniuses of Jeannie Linders at the time. She would cast very real women. She kept the show unsophisticated, I think, in a way on purpose, so that you didn't feel like you were watching actors. You felt like you were watching friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and even to recognize, like, so for you, is it common for you to pay attention to the audience just as much as to the performance when you're
Yeah.
learning about it or even when you go for pleasure?
Yeah, there's two ways for me to watch the show. Either sit in the very front row and then just keep feeling the wave of energy and laughter come all the way through, which is wild. I mean, it is a wave, and I, of course, at this point, know exactly when every wave is about to come, and it's still amazing. Or in the back and just watching the audience, which is sort of the show within the show. Those are the two, for me, the most fun things that you can do. But, I mean, I guess you could also sit right in the middle of it also, and that's fun too, but I like feeling it from the front or the back to observe, and it doesn't get old. I mean, it really doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I love when you mentioned that kind of like, jabbing to your friend and like pointing like, "Oh my gosh, that's you." Have there I feel like it's the connection is one of the most unique aspects of this. Was there anything else that you really observed about kind of this connection that created these shared experiences over the years for women?
There's that unburdening of shame.
Mm.
Really, really powerful component. There's the nostalgia, the fun, the laughter, the permission that all happens. And then I think in a lot of ways it's good that women come in groups of friends. I think I've noticed that there's a different reaction to the show when they're just with girlfriends.
Mm.
They seem very kind of free. I don't know. It is adorable to see people with husbands, and I watching the men is great. Um, but I do feel like that girls' night out permission quality is a really unique one. Um, from my experience, men, we talk about stuff, but, I think we use that to remember how many less words in conversation than women do. I think women are so communicative. Yeah, they're so communicative, and this just gives that a great container. And there's a wonderful moment at the end of the show, and again, I credit Jeannie Linders with this is pretty brilliant. The women who have gone through, well, really any woman, but specifically women who have been through menopause, the change, are invited to come up on the stage and join a kick line. And it becomes an opportunity for them to be celebrated for having made it this far in life and for having, a lot in ancient history. We didn't live this long. And so even just to survive all that comes with this and to still be up there and to celebrate yourself, um, that's a really beautiful moment. The women on stage have a great time. The people in the audience love celebrating them. And so there's just kind of a giving back at the end. And then I think you see night by night an audience of, 1,000 women go out into the world feeling differently about themselves and about the topic. And I don't know how much credit the show can take for changing the conversation over 20 years, but I mean, I will say when 17 million people having that experience and then talking about it and going out into the world, I do think it changed the conversation.
Absolutely. For a woman to be able to go, finally feel a bit seen, be able to have a laugh, which we know impacts our hormones in a positive way anyway, and then leave feeling like, wait a second, this isn't the end, this is the beginning. That's huge, Seth. Like that's a gift that I think you all have given women time and time again. So thank you.
Yeah, credit to Jeannie. The mythology behind it is she was going through menopause and really struggling and finding it very frustrating and not getting great information. And she used to write parody lyrics for her sorority in college, and she sort of had a knack for changing songs. And she apparently had a bottle of wine or two one night and just wrote a bunch of songs about menopause. And she said it felt like a really inspired moment. And she spoke to her experience of frustration and isolation, and the show was apparently born from that. So, I mean, one person can change the world.
Is there direction at all are there like tips or hacks for women in it as well? Or is it really more just about the opportunity and the connection?
I think that, from the show's standpoint, the most important thing is shedding that shame, is knowing that you're not alone, that nothing's wrong with you, and knowing that there are other people who have been through it, have survived, are going through it, who care about you. I think that that component is maybe the most important. Sure, there's medical information and you want to educate yourself on all of that, but feeling better about where you are, our attitudes about things, especially about ourselves, in my opinion, are the number one
Mm.
indicator or creator of our feelings. And I think that's the really powerful medicine. Then in terms of the conversation itself, I think if you can shed shame and start to approach it and ideally have a sense of humor about what you're going through and everything else, I think there's more space to do research and to talk to doctors. There's still major problems with how menopause is handled. Um, and I've had professionals say to me that when they were going through medical school, menopause was like a half-day lecture,
Yeah.
and that was it,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So there's real issues and things like that around it, but I still think that addressing the shame and the self-esteem and, changing the attitude from this being a sentence of some kind or or just the ending of something, I think that's really the most important first step in the mindset of handling it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things that you all have done so well, or the gift you've really given, as a functional practitioner, I work with women, of course, on like all the things, the nutrition, the workouts, the movement, the this, the that, all the things. But one of the biggest areas of opportunity that is so challenging for women is joy and pleasure and connection. And it plays such a significant role in providing energy for us, which is what we're in a shortage of in midlife. So, and that's, simply going to this show, getting into this world, this thing that you have all created is a wonderful way to do that without someone being like, what makes me laugh? What's joyful for me? So it really is no wonder it's made so many ripples and has been so beautiful. So thank you.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think with that community, anything that encourages community when you're going through challenges or even just re-education, it very important.
Yeah, for sure. I know we've kind of talked about like how, this conversation already has evolved and some of the shifts that you've noticed, like even just with, theaters or other areas being more amenable to you guys coming. Where do you think there's still room for growth? Do you still feel pushback?
No, no, no. I definitely don't feel pushback on the topic itself. It's very vogue, and younger people are talking about it now. Um, I think there's what something that I'm personally really fascinated by is what is gonna I don't know what they're gonna call it. I'll call it designer medicine,
Mm.
because one of the things I've noticed has been a challenge in all of this is hormone replacement therapy and other modalities. One of the challenges I think that the medical community has with menopause is that hormonally, no two people are the same. No two people are going to go through the same symptoms at the same levels at the same times. And with genome mapping and AI technology, I think we're going to realize that for a very long time, the best the medical community could do on any level was to just come up with one kind of medicine for everyone.
Yeah.
And maybe that's more okay when it comes to aspirin and a headache, but when it comes to things like hormones changing, that's gonna probably become way more specific and way more, individually prescribed, and I think that will really be very helpful because I think that's one of the challenges is I just don't think that we have the system built to support women in the best way around this. And I think menopause is one of the more nuanced and complicated things that the human body goes through.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And add to that the like $1 trillion gender gap between health research and it's it complex, doesn't it? Makes us a little bit archaic and behind the times. But again, it's shows like yours, it's what we're seeing happening right now that's starting to make that change, which is really cool to see.
And you made a great point, though. Dopamine, joy, connection. We have to also learn how to take care of ourselves differently as we age. There's a different responsibility and amount of focus that needs. So I think all of those things are great counterbalances to the hormonal shifts that are happening. Some of them help balance hormonal changes in the body, and some of them don't. And that's one of the funny subthreads in menopause one, where the Earth Mother, who is this very holistic and easygoing, goes with the flow kind of a character, and is really very in her own body and in her own life. She's there to serve as an example that even with everything being right and you being the most evolved person on earth, she has the most dramatic spikes. And it's a very funny way of saying, don't take these things personally. You're not doing anything wrong because these things are happening. And even the most, self-assured, balanced of all of us can go through massive spikes and changes hormonally when you're dealing with that. And I love that particular message.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really important one because there is only so much that we can do. There is a lot that we can do to prepare ourselves. And as you said, this stage of life kind of beckons for us, I think, to slow down, to look for more pleasure, to look for more peace and purpose and joy. And that's not always enough. so so it is nice to know, like, okay, it's not just me not doing enough, which I think a lot of women fall into. Like, what more should I be doing? Or am I not good enough?
As if it's something you can control, altogether, and we should probably unburden from that illusion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And how does that shift into menopause too?
Well, Menopause 2 was, a great opportunity to sort of continue the story. As the world has sort of caught up to the topic, we found audiences wanted to see where these ladies ended up after their initial meeting, and I was really very excited, about Jeannie seeing this show. So I had developed it with our English, partners, our UK partners, and, it's very sadly, Jeannie passed away, about, like, a month before we premiered MTM2, and I was so excited for her to see the show, and some other members of her original team have come and seen it, but it's just really a celebration, kind of a victory lap, and then also taking the lays a little bit older, dealing with some different issues, like partners passing away and some of the other kind of associated age-related issues, but
Can we see both right now live? Are both
The
happening?
There yeah, so Menopause 1 runs year-round in Las Vegas, and the 25th anniversary tour is about to go back around. Menopause 2 is running currently, and, what's funny is Menopause 2 running because this is the funny thing about the audience is it's always regenerating. So, there's new women who are millions of women who are going to menopause all the time. And so a lot of them have come and seen Menopause too. And their first question is, how do I see one? They had no idea there was even another version of the show. So now they want to go and see the original. So it's funny. I guess, you sort of there's a I don't know, 5 or 10 year cycle of the topic. So I don't know if we'll run them together. Maybe. Maybe, and I'm starting early work on another
Yeah,
one.
girls' weekend for real.
Well, that would be yeah. We
Girls,
could maybe do a trilogy and have, like, a whole, I don't know, 3-day weekend.
or you could do a perimenopause, like just leave even earlier, leading in.
Yeah. Yeah. The next version, thinking about, sort of speaking to a younger audience in terms of the music, and the conversation, and, it's really funny. I mean, I started working on this show and I was in a different generation. And now my friends, women I went to high school with, this is the topic of conversation for them. And I would kind of like to get a version that is meeting them where they are, 80s music and yes.
Yeah, we must be from a similar generational age then. That would be really cool. How do the actors, the performers, like, how do they feel about it? What have you heard from them?
I've produced a lot of shows and some that have been very highly acclaimed and award winning and that's great. But like I said earlier, we live to affect people. Like nothing makes us more excited than when you really feel you've made an impact on someone in the audience and in a positive way. And I think every person that works on menopause will say there is no other show like it. That you just don't affect people like this. And so they are rock stars when they perform the show. I mean, there's a character moment where our professional woman comes out as Tina Turner to give sexual freedom and empowerment to one of the other characters and basically, um, giving her, sisterly permission to be all of herself,
Yeah.
as this kind of goddess symbol. And the audience goes berserk when she bursts through the door. And there's just moments like that there's just not anything like it. And so I think everybody has a very special place in their heart, and then they get approached on stage, especially when we do Menopause 1 in the kick line, and they hear things every day. "You've changed my life. I just survived cancer. This is the first time I've been out. That I've seen the show 17 times."
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
you get I guess you feel purpose because it's a tough industry. We all work very hard. They travel and, we do all this work, but that's the moment that you live for,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
special.
There's so much magic in music too. So just so much credit and gratitude for those of you who live in the arts this way because it really does spread light to other people. I know at the beginning you kind of talked about like bridging this gap between, Jeannie's desire to like have the women feel seen and maybe the other side of like wanting to bring the comic relief to it and that like how did you bridge that?
They're never separate. I think great comedy is pain plus time, and the really relating to something deeply is what makes it personal, is what makes it funny, and so, to me, the 2 versions they should never have been fighting each other at all. Um, so it was just yeah, it's just where you sort of put the focus. It's very easy in musical theater comedy, especially to play things for laughs, wonka, 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 and, you get a laugh, but if you can play something that is real, you still get the laugh, but you get the laugh that it resonates more deeply, and that was really all it was. I mean, I knew what she was saying, and it's something you have to pull actors back from also because when they've done something again and again, they do tend to gravitate towards the reaction. It's biofeedback. They sort of can't help themselves. You do something this much and you get a laugh. So if you do it more, you get a bigger laugh. And before you know it, they're just doing it for the laugh unconsciously.
Mm.
And so it was really just spending time to ground it in what is this character? What's she going through? What is she saying? Why? And don't worry about the laugh. That stuff takes care of itself. Just want to always play the authenticity of that moment. And these actresses are great. And all you ever have to do is just sort of remind them of what the action in the situation is. And when that's their focus, it's real and the laugh is there.
And then it explodes.
Yeah.
I'm getting very excited to go and see this.
You've never seen it?
I have not. If you
Oh,
think
no
I
way.
have not, but
Where you gonna see it?
I'll have to go to Vegas. I mean, I mean, I live in Phoenix, so I'm not that far. So I guess I'll have to go to Vegas.
I don't remember the schedule offhand, but I mean, I know we were in Phoenix for Menopause 2, and then the tour is gonna be out. Alright, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
I would love that. Yeah, I didn't even know it. It's so funny, I'm in this industry, and then I think I was in Vegas last January with, visiting my sister and my dad, who happened to be there from Canada, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this huge big billboard of like, pink menopause?" I think I took a picture with it. And that was my beginning intro into learning about it. So I've always wanted to go, but
Right.
it's on the bucket list. It will happen.
We'll make it happen.
Thank you. So Seth, for women listening who might be in the middle of this transition, maybe they haven't been to the show, they're feeling alone, feeling overwhelmed. What do you hope that they take away from seeing the show?
They're not alone. They are not terminally unique. This is a phase of life. You are more than this experience, way more, and that we've all got to approach ourselves in life with humor and grace. I think those are 2 beautiful gifts that God gave us, and we've got to develop the ability to use them because they're life-saving, and, especially when the challenges are deep. They need to be there with the depth of the challenge, and so be gentle with yourselves. Be gentle with yourselves, and where you put your focus is very powerful. And like we were talking about earlier, to have lived this long and to have gained this experience, you have so much more to do. You have so much more to give, and
Use it as a launching pad.
use it as a launching pad. Yeah, use it as a launching pad. Be inspired by all you've survived.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really just I think it's a gift. It's the gift we didn't ask for, but the one that we need to launch into that next phase. And I again, I'm so grateful for the laughter and joy and the seen-ness you give to women through this. Uh, do you have women close in your life who have been impacted by it?
Oh yeah, sure, sure. The- one of the worst examples of it is a friend of mine uh, who was younger,
Mm.
who went to see the show at, I think, Laguna many years ago because I was out there and I was directing it, and she and 4 of her friends in their, I guess, maybe early to mid 30s. And, they were sitting in the ocean of menopausal women, and I was up in the balcony taking notes. And of course, I kept watching them. They were just terrified. It were, it was they were just terrified. They really had no idea. And it was, I thought to myself, that's crazy that this is such an unknown topic to them. And what's funny is she has come back to me now years later. This is a decade ago. And she said, "You know what? The show actually really helped me because when the stuff started happening,
Yeah.
I actually knew. I remembered the show. I remembered the associations and the experience." And she's like, "And I kind of took it with a grain of salt." And that was one experience that I thought was wild. Then there was a theater owner who came to see the show who was considering booking it just based on its reputation and success, but had never seen it. He saw it and he was, like, white as a ghost afterwards, and we went up to him, he's like, "So what did you think?" And he's just in this stunned moment, and he said, "If I saw the show 5 years ago, I probably would not have divorced my wife."
Oh,
And we just had this you could feel it in your heart
mm.
that he felt he didn't understand what was happening with his wife.
It makes you think of I feel very emotional hearing you say that. It makes you think of the ripple effect that the normalization and the impact of this show that will have on people, really, Seth, truly. Because you think if we can all understand things a little bit more, women and their partners, whatever they are, then it can allow more grace and compassion through a challenging time that no one has shed light on forever.
I think that's a prescription for life in general, and then especially when you have something like this that is kind of extreme in its onset and in the changes. I mean, to me, it is adult adolescence. You think about the hardest time in your life when you were growing up is when your hormones are all over the place, and then here you sort of bookended with this other version of it. But hopefully, at that age, you hopefully have developed grace and kindness towards yourself. And if not, this'll push you in that direction because that's how you survive it.
Yeah, and I think honestly, one of the most common things I end up saying to my clients is like, you need to go and have some more fun. Or when was the last time you laughed so hard that you cried? Here is an answer for all of my clients and all of the women listening to the podcast right now. Now you have something to plan and go to that is just for you that will make you laugh so hard that you cry, which I love.
There's another character in the show, the soap star, and she's a very interesting transition, the archetype of that. She has her perceived value in the world has been her beauty all the way, sort of up to this point, and now she's worried they're planning on recasting the soap opera that she's a star in, and the big journey for her is recalibrating her worth. Is remembering that who she is as a person is from the inside out, not the outside in. And so sort of there's that lesson there of, let go or be dragged. And we're all going to change. We're all going to go through these phases. Look at nature. Look at everything. And you have to be very careful about what you identify your value in this world as. And of course, when we're young, we it's a commodity and we put weight in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a fun time, but it's not all that you are. And as it changes, I think we have to be willing to change with it and adapt and see all the different values that we have. Um, because I think that there's a different pressure on women on that particular issue also. And that's that can be a tough one. Um, and the importance of that recalibration, I think is really crucial.
One would hope that as this evolves, like as more women start to understand this and accept this and more people, not just women, at this stage that will trickle down into the next generations. So maybe it'll be less of a shock when we reach this stage.
Or even like sort of Buddhist philosophy is, you can enjoy things, but you should also accept that they won't exist forever. It would be great for younger people to like those women watching menopause in their 30s.
Yeah.
I know it was a big leap for them, but what the really great lesson is, enjoy your youth because it's a beautiful thing. Know that nothing lasts forever and know that you are something beyond all of that too, and you have different qualities that will emerge.
Yeah. Help you appreciate what you have while you have it, and that
Yeah.
will change and you'll get to appreciate something different.
Yep.
Seth, this has been such a pleasure. I'm so grateful for you and for your time today. And I know everyone listening who is probably going to want to come and see it again if they haven't, or go see, Menopause 2. What do you want them to do? Like, is it go buy your tickets or go to see which one, or what would you like for the women?
We designed Menopause 2 so that you didn't have to have any other information. You could see it just as its own show, and then it's the 25th anniversary of the show coming up, so we're doing a special 25th anniversary tour so people can see the original again. Um, but what I would say is, I don't even have to say this, it just happens naturally. We have the highest return ticket buyers of any show that I've ever been involved with,
Mm.
and when we did our sort of market research on why, it was that women kept bringing friends to see the show. They knew what they went through, and they wanted to share that with other people, and they wanted to watch other people go through it. So here's this elixir, this medicine of shedding shame. It's something you wanna share.
Yeah.
And that's been, I think, another reason for the show's success is how much people wanna bring other people to see it.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. And it really speaks to that sisterhood. So now, like I said, now we have a great girls' play. Where do we go to get tickets?
MenopauseTheMusical.com, that should give you the listings for the tour. Menopause 1, Menopause 2, some future menopause, and until, I mean, I know we wanna solve everything medically, But I really do think that there's these like very deep spiritual, emotional components to this evolution. So
There is.
yeah, I think it's part of being human. I think maybe the symptoms can lessen and there can be more comfortable and comforting treatments, but there's something about this process of the cycle of life and embracing it. And ancient cultures seemed much more comfortable and embracing than ours. So I don't know, maybe some more of that ancient wisdom seeps in.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know that perspective matters, right? It changes whether you are sad about the rainy day or whether you go dance in that rainy day. And I think,
Yeah.
if you are laughing and playful and joyful, then some of what feels like a big problem can feel like a much smaller problem. So I think at the very least, we know it's good for that. It's good for the nervous system. So therefore, it's good for the hormones. There's the science. There's the science behind it. So it makes sense. This is a
Joy.
treatment.
Joy. There you go. Maybe we should just start selling shirts at the show that just say joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Joy
Don't
without
miss it.
my hormones. There you go. Joy is my HRT.
Mhm.
Seth Greenleaf, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your piece and what you guys have created and part of this movement. I know that all the women listening are going to be so grateful for it too. So thank you for being here today.
Honor to be in service, and Jeannie, whatever perch she's watching from, thanks from everybody for the gift.
Yeah, for sure. All right, sisters, I think now you have one of the best tools we can offer you to go out and be more in your life and not just less on a scale. We'll catch you in the next episode.
If you're 35 plus and ready to stop guessing, start understanding your hormones, and feel your absolute best, hit subscribe. That's what we do here.